Okay, how's everybody doing? This is going to be a video about Mr. WrestleMania. But before I get into that, Destination X. I did not see Destination X. It doesn't sound like I have more than a few reasons to see Destination X, to be quite honest. Even the people who said it was a good pay-per-view pretty much centered their praise around two matches that I have to give about 80% of the credit to the performers themselves because, all TNA had to do was give them time to go out there and do their thing in the ladder match and the Ultimate X, and after that it's just down to them to steal the show, and it sounds like they did. So those two matches, if I do watch the show, they do not represent as a whole how great of a direction TNA is going in heading up to lockdown, because as I've said before, I don't believe the current X Division has a future in TNA, a long-term future. Maybe they'll surprise me and they'll make something of it, but I remain quite cynical about its long-term prospects. So there we go on that. And also I would direct your attention to the new Ring of Honor website layout. Yeah, I think it's quite tacky looking myself. Maybe I'm just in a minority on that, but I think it looks very tacky. The last layout wasn't all that great. It was okay, it wasn't great, but this one, yeah, I'm not enjoying it at all, to be honest. Just thought I'd throw that out there before I get into the main topic of this video, which is Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is generally regarded as Mr. WrestleMania among wrestling fans, and I would agree. Throughout the years, Shawn Michaels has given us some amazing performances at WrestleMania. He has saved WrestleMania. He has been the defining point of great WrestleManias, and he's pretty much lived up to the moniker he's been now given in recent years, which is that of Mr. WrestleMania. So that begets the question in my mind, and I actually got this from a poll on WWE.com, which I thought was a great idea, to put as a question in a video. What was Mr. WrestleMania's greatest WrestleMania moment? There has been a good few that you could argue for or against being the best, and I'm going to pick 5. There are definitely others. For one of them I had to really think about which one I wanted to include as the 5th one. But the first 4 came pretty easy. There was one here that I had to think about for a little bit, but I'm going to give 5. Maybe someone wants to include another, but I doubt it, to be honest, based on what I look back on Shawn Michaels' WrestleManias. I think this is the best 5 as far as I'm concerned. So let's look through them. The first one that you could argue is Shawn Michaels' finest hour, WrestleMania X, stealing the show with Razor Ramon in a ladder match for the Intercontinental title. Great match. What can you say? It is timeless even to this day. You could watch this match to this day and still think it's, wow, this is amazing. That's really hard to do based on all the things, all the crazy shit we've seen in ladder matches since then, and this match still stands the test of time. That is an amazing accomplishment, and this is just the height of the prestige of the Intercontinental title in my mind, because there were 2 belts up there and so much prestige attached to getting those belts from the ladder that there's just so many great things to say about this match. That's the first one in my mind that you could argue is Shawn Michaels' best WrestleMania moment. And now we move on to WrestleMania XII, where he won his first WWE Championship in a 60-minute Iron Man match against Bret Hart. He went the full 60 minutes. There was 0-0, and then he beat Bret Hart in one fall. And, not the biggest fan of this match, I will admit. Just as I said before, I'm not the biggest Bret Hart fan. My enjoyment of his matches wholeheartedly depends on who he was facing, and that is why I don't consider Bret Hart great, because the truly great wrestlers can have a great match with just about anyone. There are a few exceptions to that. They can have a great match with just about anyone. Bret Hart, it really does depend on who he's with, and that's why I don't consider Bret Hart great. However, this is a controversial match, whether you like it or you don't. It's okay, it's not bad, but it's definitely not up there as the best WrestleMania matches in my opinion. However, this is the match where Shawn Michaels won his first World Championship, so it is important, despite the fact that I didn't really enjoy the match quality itself. it is an important match, and you could definitely argue that it is the most important WrestleMania moment for Shawn Michaels. You know, your first world title means a lot. The entrance he had pretty much stands the test of time as well. It's often shown on the WrestleMania montages that they do. So you could definitely argue that WrestleMania XII is his finest hour in WrestleMania moments. Number 3, this is the one that I had to think about for a bit. WrestleMania XIX, stealing the show against Chris Jericho. I was torn on this, whether or not to have this here, or the WrestleMania 21 show stealer against Kurt Angle. In the end, I decided on this one because Shawn Michaels won this one, so it's more of a moment for him as opposed to a moment for his opponents, which was what WrestleMania 21 was. Even though, you know, by the end of the match was so good that you didn't really care who won. That was the case with WrestleMania 21, even though the heel won. I didn't give a shit. That was a great match. But this is WrestleMania 19, stealing the show against Chris Jericho. I mean, you know, he comes up against stiff competition on that pay-per-view because there were so many great matches on that pay-per-view in my opinion. So this is probably the weakest of the WrestleMania moments on here. Probably no one would really think this is his best WrestleMania moment, but it definitely ranks up there in my opinion. This was a great match, and he deserves a lot of credit for that match. So there we go on that. And now, the one that up until last month I would have picked right away, wrestling against Ric Flair in his retirement match. Yes, now, this wholeheartedly depends on whether you're going to take it in the context of the time, or are you going to take into account the fact that Flair went back on his word on his wrestling again, or at least has wrestled once on national television in the United States. You know, I really do have a problem with him doing that. I never actually said that before when he was actually doing it, but I did have a problem with him doing that. I really think it was a disrespectful thing to do when you entrusted Shawn Michaels with wrestling your last match. The WWE does this huge send-off for you, and then you go and wrestle again. Yeah, not the biggest fan of him doing that, and I'm on the fence on whether or not this dilutes the importance of the WrestleMania 24 match, because taken in the context of the time, which, you know, the best time you're watching a WrestleMania is the first time as it is happening at the current state of time, back 2 years ago when this actually did happen. Obviously, looking back at it, the legacy of this match is tainted now, but in the context of the time, if you're going to look at it that way, you can still regard this as a great moment and a great match. But I'm just really torn on whether or not this would be considered this great moment when now the legacy of the moment is tainted, and it will not stand the test of time as a great WrestleMania moment should, because Flair did not stick to his word. And finally, what he did last year, stealing the show against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25 and coming the closest to ending the streak. You know, even though I never really thought he had much of a chance of winning, he did add enough drama to the match where I felt like he could win during the match. And that's all that matters really, as long as he adds that kind of drama to the match wherein, you know, it looks like he might win. That's all that really matters really. So that's the 5th moment I would put up there against any of these other moments as Shawn Michaels' greatest WrestleMania moments. And as for my choice of what is the best one, you know, I really wanted to pick 24 here. I really wanted to pick the retirement match against Ric Flair, but I really do think the legacy of this match is too tainted for me to pick it, to be honest, and that really does bother me a bit. But a great WrestleMania moment should be timeless. It should be remembered for a long time, and this, you know, it's possible that TNA will never get so big that Flair wrestling will be a factor. Maybe they'll just stay with what they are, and Flair wrestling in this small time promotion will be a non-factor. But it does bother me, to be honest. I really can't put this up there after Flair wrestling again. So I'm going to go with WrestleMania X, just simply because it is a great match that is timeless and endures as this great spectacle even today, even 16 years after it happened. So that's my pick. Tell me yours, and, you know, tell me if you think that Shawn Michaels could beat all those moments this year with what he has going with The Undertaker this year, with his possible last match. I don't know if anyone really believes that it might be his last match, but you never know. So tell me what you think on this. I'll be back to you guys with another video later in the week.